Fitness journey. Oh, good question. I started in the pool. I was a swimmer for like 7 to 8 years, like competitively,
Hmm.
and then I ended up completely burning out simply because I'd do like 2 hours in the pool in the morning. I'd go to school, and then I'd do two and a half in the evening plus land training. So it's too much training for a kid.
I
Um,
love how you call it land training, which is just like training for the rest of us.
yes, yes, but at that time, like on and until later on down the line, I ended up working with a load of swimmers and got them doing specific stuff. But at that time, it was basically just circuits on land. So you're hitting the same stimulus. So everything's just cardio based. Everything is
Mm.
just like pounding the heart rate, getting you, yeah, cardiovascular fit, granted, but are we strong? Are we like stable? No, heck. But you could
Yeah.
argue you need a lot of stability in the water. Probably not. Um, but then I played rugby for a while and I got took out of that because of a lot of concussions and I got a serious neck injury that wiped me out. So I had to hang up my boots and then, as you do, like you carry on training, weight training in the gym, kind of, what do I do now? Identity's been stripped away. So I ended up dabbling back into the whole, okay, maybe we get strong again. Because I was a little bit of a, we'll say, larger child.
Hmm.
And I went through a period where I dropped down to like 59 kilos. Um, Everyone goes through whatever they go through, and the only thing I could control at the time was what I was eating, and that's what I did control, and just literally just shrunk like half the size.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, well, this probably isn't sustainable. I'm I'm dropping weight pretty fucking quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, other than that, got into CrossFit for a little bit, did that for a little bit, gave me that competitive aspect that I was kind of craving since stopping rugby. And then realized I can't be asked with the training. It takes a lot. And I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. I think there's a lot of bad things. I think there's a lot of good things. I think the good things outweigh the bad things. But I uprooted and now I'm over in New Zealand, and the training for CrossFit when you're traveling and don't really know how to get to a gym is impossible because you need to train like we know all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to go into Olympic weightlifting purely for weightlifting. I love this thing and just carried on with the whole gymnastic and burpees. I was like, yeah, it's time to stop doing burpees and sit down. And my cardio is back squat fives.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, you've kind of run the gamut of a few different fitness options there.
Yeah, man. Like,
I heard your gyms were just about to reopen too.
yes, we've been open a while, man.
Have you?
Yeah,
Okay.
man. Yeah, we got.
Well, I have a few athletes in Australia who are not too happy right now, especially over by the Sydney area. But I'm thankful that New Zealand's on the right track.
Yeah, Australia, like parts of Australia, like some of the provinces have gone like super militant with it in the sense of they've been locked down forever.
Yeah.
Which it's not up to us to make that decision, but I could understand how rough that would be for some individuals over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm super grateful. We got I think we got 4 weeks initially when it first rolled around, like whenever it was a year and a half ago, and then we had another I want to say like 2 to 3 weeks recently. And now it's just
Hmm.
been the whole like track where you go, wear a mask inside. But when you sit down, you can take it off. And other than that, it's pretty much the same. But I'm in the South Island, man, and there's no one here. Like no one here.
Mm. Nice.
So it's super easy. What part of the states you in?
I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado. So the capital of Colorado is Denver, and we're about an hour north of that. So there's a big, gigantic mountain range that goes all the way down through the United States called the Rocky Mountains, and we're just east of the Rockies.
Wow, that Seems like such a beautiful place to go visit.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. We're really lucky. And right around now, the leaves are all turning yellow and getting into fall weather.
Mm. One of the most beautiful scenes you can see on the planet, right? Is that those autumn leaves or the
Yeah.
fall leaves, of you guys call it. Like it's stunning, man.
Hmm.
You get that, what, 2 weeks, maybe less than, where it's just about right.
That's exactly.
Yeah, man.
And then they're just gone. So
And then they're
we're
gone.
appreciating it right now.
Yeah, then it's winter and you're like, fuck, it's cold.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your fitness journey. You've kind of heard mine. What about yours, man?
Yeah, sorry. So we just got right to recording. I'll introduce myself and then I'll say a little bit about how I got to where I am today. My name is Bryce Lewis. I'm a powerlifter and a powerlifting coach. Sorry, this just fly that just will not leave me alone.
Really likes your head.
Powerlifting coach. I started off playing volleyball in high school and college, enjoyed it a lot. And then through the wonder of the internet, found the bodybuilding.com forums and figured out that like there's ways to train so you can look shredded. And I found some friends who were doing some bodybuilding competitions. So I did that for a little while. And then I learned that when you're bodybuilding, there are times of the year where you have to eat a lot less than you normally do. And and when you do that, it doesn't feel good all the time. But there's this thing called powerlifting that allows you to train the same or close to the same, but you get to eat a little bit more. And so I did powerlifting and really enjoyed it and competed at my first national competition in 2014, won in 2015, and have been competing at a high level since then. So I started a coaching company in late 2013 called The Strength Athlete. And together with myself, those two interns I mentioned before, and two other coaches, we work with maybe about 150 athletes or so at a time, and really just try to blend everything I think that high level athletes across any sport would need in order to become successful. So attention to nutrition, technique, programming, sports psychology. We now have a sports psychologist on staff, and we also have a physical therapist on staff to kind of correct for problems that come up and just kind of help support athletes as best as possible. So that's kind of where we're at. And my next competition is in March. I'm dieting my way down to the 93 kilo weight class. I've been competing as a 105 for at least the last 3 or 4 years. So this will be a new and exciting move for me. But yeah, that's kind of how I got to where I am today. I like training. It's fun. It's hard. You get to feel like you did something really valuable at the end of the day. Even when it's a grind, it's still fun. It just kind of feels like a puzzle that you have to kind of figure new things out about how you progress and stuff. So it's nice.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like one of the greatest quotes I ever heard from one of the members I used to coach was, "We pay for this so we don't have to pay for therapy."
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit. Like that's like, I've been thinking that for however long, and you've just kind of put it into one sentence. You're like, that's so true. You're like, yeah, like, you feel that sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, even if you've just got in the gym, moved the bar and be like, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of me today. And you're like, well, I feel like I've accomplished something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. Like it's
absolutely true.
It's funny. I love, like, I coaching a gym now, which have a lot of new individuals that I've never trained before, right? Which is really cool dynamic in a sense that they come in and I really want to hear their like prerequisites of the gym. Like, what's the stereotype? What do you think of the gym? What do you think of us that clearly like have done this for a while, and et cetera, et cetera. And like just hearing what they've got to say is very, very interesting. You're like, it's the whole like arrogance or whatever. You're like, oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, then you explain, a little bit more, and they're like, oh my God, you guys are just like us. I'm like, yeah, we've just been doing it a little bit longer. Like, that's all.
Yeah. I'm always interested by like the type of people that are drawn to powerlifting. It's a smart group, it seems to me. Like a lot of engineers, a lot of just kind of critical thinkers and stuff like that. Part of it is, for the most part, people coach themselves, and there's a lot of people who don't. But even the people who are coached are very critically thinking and are able to kind of make smart decisions about their training and understand kind of what's going on. It's just so cool to see.
Yeah, that's very true. I've noticed the same. Like everyone I've bumped into who's been a powerlifter has been a wickedly smart individual.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, hold on a minute. Like you're a bit geeky, like you're super smart, and then the next thing you know, you get under a bar and you're like, wait, what's on that bar? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
You're like,
Right.
no, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be like playing chess or something. And then they'll get off and they'll smack you at chess. It's like, oh, okay, now I have nothing.
Yeah, I remember the famous picture of famed neuroscientist and author Oliver Sacks. He's a powerlifter, squatted like 625 or what's that, 285, somewhere right around there. It's cool to see that people can excel in other areas and also excel in like this area of fitness as well. And powerlifting is pretty new too. So I'm just excited to kind of see what happens in the future.
There's definitely going to be some insanely strong people, like insanely strong.
Yeah.
Like I cannot wait to see what happens next.
I think one of the things we may see is just people starting a little bit younger. So here in the United States, you get lucky if you're able to do powerlifting in high school or in college. So like, let's see, what's that, age 13 to 18, somewhere around there is high school for us. And there's not many high school powerlifting programs, or the ones that aren't very serious. And, college powerlifting also, kind of more limited. But if those athletes ever either in the education setting or alone are able to just train and work on that, I can't wait to see what athletes are able to do.
How would you structure a program for kids then? We'll say between the ages of 13 or 15.
It's really hard because looking at the research on sports psychology, burnout is really prevalent for younger sports. And thinking about long-term athletic development, we don't want to start people on powerlifting per se much younger, but perhaps something that looks like a blend between strongman and like play or games or something like that, plus a little bit more generalized conditioning. Even other sports, dodgeball, football, something like that. You can still resistance train, but like I wouldn't want it to look like powerlifting for quite a while. I would want it to look more like body weight training, or body weight plus weight training, like weighted push-ups, weighted pull-ups, carries, just kind of moving in different planes of motion for quite a while before we really kind of started powerlifting in earnest. And, it's not to say that someone can't increase their muscle mass early on. If you're trying to build a powerlifter that at age, 35 or something like that is the best powerlifter in the world, I don't think you start off with powerlifting. I think you start off a little bit more generally.
Yeah. And like SBD is quite specialized, right? It's getting strong in three movements. Like that's it. And everything you can do with your body, it's 3 movements. You're like, oh, okay, is that it? And like you said, you want to be able to plug the holes as a kid and be able to do multiple things. And that poses the issues of like early specialization spots, right? Like swimming, for example, or gymnastics. Fast forward down the line, I ended up coaching a load of swimmers, one at a university and then one as in one group at a uni, then one at a private swimming club. And a lot of them were, national/international athletes, right? I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I get to help these kids out. But the next thing you know, like they're only ever swam. That's it. There's only ever been in the pool. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. No problem. I'm going to be able to sort these people out. And they get out and they're like, oh, when do I breathe? I'm like, what do you mean, when do you breathe? I'm like, oh, well, I'm holding my breath. I was like, what? No, like breathe when you have to. Like we're not in the pool anymore. And you know, those things are just like, holy shit. Like these people have no idea what to do out of the pool. You know, you put a human in the pool, hopefully they'll be able to swim. You take a fish out of the pool, then they're going to drown, they're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being able to adapt and being able to coach them through those things that they need outside of the water. And it's, yeah, man, it's interesting, those early specialization spots.
For sure it is. And, you know, like, sure, you could, here's the problem that I sometimes see is there's a lot of athletes who are crushing it at age 19, you know, at age 18, at something like that. And I worry if they are able to keep up that performance for a decade, you know, when they're 29, you know, when they're 28 or something like that. Are they still going to be able to push as hard, to be as dedicated, to be as injury-free, as resilient, as into the sport and as passionate about it? And that's a little bit of that early specialization piece that I'm talking about. Like when do they peak ultimately?
Yeah, you do see, you know, and especially when people start dabbling around with a little bit of aid a little bit too early, you know what I mean? And it's like, wait, hold on a minute. Like you're not developed as a human being. Like folk sport for a second, like take that out of the equation. Like you're not developed as a human being. Now you're trying to like jump forwards and leap forwards rather than take the steps needed to get there. You're like, yeah, of course you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
Like leave all the physiological issues, like just the mental side. Yeah, you're going to burn out. Like it's running yourself into a wall for like 5 years. You're like, that's not how strength training works, dude. It's like months and years, right? Rather than, oh yeah, I'm going to get there in like 6 weeks. You're like, okay, good luck.
But I mean, how do you convince an athlete to slow down? Because that's one thing, like I think is relevant. Is like everyone wants the most progress, the quickest, and you know, young athletes are really impressionable, and you know, they want to push very hard. It's a tough thing to throttle an athlete in a way that doesn't make them get disinterested in the sport, but to be like, this is how to get to your best self, you know, ultimately.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's one set answer for that. How would you tell someone to slow down?
You know, it's really just about like sustainable behaviors, you know, so like, I think there's some teachable moments you can find. So like the small things, like small overuse stuff that occurs, like, oh, my adductor's been bugging me a little bit. And then when that happens, you can start having a conversation with the athlete about like sustainability and making sure that, you know, we're making progress not only for now, but for the long term. Or there's this useful analogy that I learned from Matt Gary, who's a coach here in the United States and also kind of has set a lot of the foundation for attempt selection, you know, that we end up using. But it's this idea like, okay, let's pretend that you compete 3 times a year and all you do is you hit a 2.5 kilo PR on your squat, your bench, and your deadlift at each of those competitions. So that's at the end of the year, it's 7.5 on your squat, 7.5 on your bench, 7.5 on your deadlift. So what's that? 22.5 total. So you're looking at adding like 50 pounds per year to your total. All right. If you did that 5 years in a row, that's 250 pounds added to your total, which is mind blowing, right? 10 years, 500 pounds added to your total. Also mind blowing. Would you be okay with that rate of progress? Yes, absolutely. But when you look at the micro progression of that, it's the minimum amount of progress from competition to competition, you know, and typically athletes are making more than that. So it's really just kind of about framing what the appropriate rate of progress looks like in order to achieve, you know, national level competitiveness, world level competitiveness, even for those athletes who are competitively oriented. For the athletes who aren't, it's even easier. You know, we're just looking for your next PR, your next bit of progress, you know, and we'll kind of search for your your PRs, if you want that big next milestone, like that's going to come, we're just going to train hard enough and then we'll get there.
Mm. Having that honest conversation with them, right?
Yeah. It's hard, sometimes athletes have to swallow their pride a little bit, but you both benefit at the end of the day with more realistic expectations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it helps a coach having that conversation if they've been in those shoes, you know what I mean? And they've been an athlete, right? And whoever's done any type of competitive sport or competitive whatever always wants to progress as quick as possible. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whether it's volleyball, whether it's fucking water polo, bowls, powerlifting, whatever it is, you're like, I want to be the best I can be, even if it's just intrinsically. You're like, you want to progress that as quick as possible because, time is time. You can't speed it up, and sometimes it can get boring. And having been that athlete before, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand how you feel. I can like empathize with this individual now. And you're like, listen to me. Like, I've been in those shoes. I know what it's like. Trust me, because if you risk it, sometimes you get the chocolate biscuit, and then sometimes you break it. Sometimes you end up in a pretty bad state, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Have you had any pretty bad injuries?
I've had a few for sure. Nothing that's kind of like prevented me from training for, any long period of time, but I've had to heavily modify training quite a few times. So early on, I herniated a disc in my L5 S1 playing volleyball. And that took quite a while of recovery. I've had some back stuff kind of unrelated to that. I've had some adductor issues close to a competition. I've had some shoulder issues. Like you train long enough, you get your fair share of acute stuff, chronic stuff. And I think how you deal with those determines whether or not you make it through or whether you just deal with it for the rest of your life, because you didn't take time off or you didn't adjust training in the right ways or something like that. So I feel like I've been pretty lucky. And part of that has been having training that's been sustainable, but it's not always that simple.
Yes, sir. Like, it is not always that simple, especially when it comes to the body, right? We think we know how it works, and then the next thing we don't. It's like, oh, okay, that theory that everyone was going off, it turns out it was bullshit, right? We need to go back to the drawing board and figure this thing out. And you're like, oh, okay, what do we do now? It's like, well, good luck.
Right.
So that's what makes it fun, right? And it is, like we said, it's a new sport. Powerlifting's a new sport, but also like, fitness is a new thing. Like, it's still relatively new. Like sports science, it's new in the grand scheme of things.
I forget who I was talking with about this, but it's interesting. Like fitness as a casual endeavor, like something to do in your free time. The gym itself is 50 years old or something like that, 50, 60 years old. As a place that you can go and there's equipment and you can train to make yourself, look a certain way. Things used to be either group oriented or really just kind of like outdoors before then, before we started taking fitness a little bit more seriously than we do now. So it's kind of fun being at the early side of all this and kind of seeing where things will go from here.
That frontier life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just figuring it out. And I do miss the days where you go into the gym and you let's be honest, you have no fucking idea what you're doing. You know how to kind of move the weight in a way that it's not going to break you, but you have no idea about programming or whatever. And you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to slam this into my face for 2 hours and I'm going to like crawl out of the gym because that's the way to do it, bro. And I'm like, I kind of miss those naive days where I just have no idea what's going on.
I miss that too a little bit. I know how to train now so well that like I just kind of do the most optimal thing all the time. And I remember not knowing that. And I remember like just kind of fumbling my way through things a little bit more and like following like an animal, the company Animal from Animal Pack and stuff like that. They posted like some free templates on the bodybuilding.com forums way back. And like, I just like destroyed my legs a few days, and, just like way too much training. You have to like guide yourself down on the toilet to go to the bathroom. And like my dad had this truck and we would always go to the gym together. And like I couldn't climb into the truck because my legs just were like not working. And no one has to train that hard, but it's kind of fun, every once in a while to feel this like thing that your body is now not capable of doing. And like, okay, if I have to dig into it deeper, it makes you not take for granted, your body and how it functions for you on a regular basis.
100%, 100%. But sometimes I'll get that at the back of my head. I'm like, maybe I could do that again. You know what I mean? Just for a one-off. And then I'm like, no, I need to be able to actually function for the next 5 days. I'm like, I need to work, man. I'm not at school anymore. I don't just sit down and kind of like coast. You know what I mean? I'm like, I need to do shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It takes away that function. Yeah, we used to train for fucking, what was it, for rugby? Like we'd go in, we'd do 2 hours in the weight room, right? This was like during summer, so we'd have the dreaded summer fitness training. And we'd do 2 hours in the weight room. We had like, it was more like a room and a half, you know what I mean? So like a standard small bedroom, and then half of that on top. So they've kind of like knocked down the wall and added like another little brick kind of wall, right? There was no windows. Everything was like mucky, dirty. There was mud everywhere because obviously it was a rugby club. So people are traipsing mud everywhere. And just like, the mix match weights. So none of them like added up. They were all slightly off. They were all, nothing was in pairs. Nothing was ever put away. It was like, all right, we get in there, we get 2 hours in the weight room, do whatever the fuck it is, just lift weight for 2 hours. We get out on the field, we do 2 hours of fitness training, which is usually like sprinting, parachutes, hills, whatever it is. And then we had a bit of a militant coach that was just like, all right, fellas, you've done 2 hours, and some of you had done 2 hours before. Now we get to play ball. And after those 4 hours of training, now we'd actually pick up the rugby ball and start tossing it around and do some skills and drills. Mate, I remember sitting on the stairs and having to like use my arms to pull myself up. Like legit, my legs were not working.
Yeah. So do you ever look at something like that and think, oh, these powerlifters aren't training as hard as they could be?
I can see how people would think that, but personally, no.
Yeah.
Because it's out of context. You take that work ethic, quote unquote, right? And then you apply it to an insane intensity. So you're like loading the body up with like some weights that you just don't even know how it feels, because you're just like, okay, 300 kilos. Most people will never touch 300 kilos in their life. Like whether it's like trying to shift an object or whatever, they will never know what that feels like. So I'm just like, oh yeah, you should probably like be training more. You're like, that's 300 kilos, man. That's 400 kilos. That's 500 kilos. No, like you're going to do it once and your body's going to be absolutely destroyed. So nah, I think, thinking back, you can always plug holes in it. You can always pull out the cons, but at the same time, like it develops so much discipline and so much like, do or die work ethic. Like, yeah, granted, we were fitter than anybody else in the league and we won 4 leagues in a row. Granted, okay, like, was it the best way of doing it? Probably not. But did it work? Yes. But it's the mental side that I think benefited us as the thing goes, I don't want to do this, and my teammates are throwing up, but you're making me do it. I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like it's pros and cons, man.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Do you get anyone coming in that looks at the programming that you give them and you're like, Bryce, this isn't enough, mate?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not very like tough about it. I'm always open to changing stuff, so if if they're saying like, hey, I want to do more, and I feel like doing more isn't going to detract from their goals or, cause burnout or anything like that. Yeah, for sure. Let's add on some hypertrophy work. Let's add on a few extra sets. Let's add on an extra day for a little bit of extra practice. There's a lot of ways you can kind of modify training. I think one thing that I really aim for above all is for athletes to feel motivated by their training. So they look at their training and they're excited about doing it. And for the most part, they're excited about going in the gym and they feel like they understand why they're doing their training and all that kind of stuff. So if we're not there, I'm going to change a lot of things, not everything, but I'm going to change a lot of things to see if we can get on the same page, to see if I can have them get excited and have some buy-in about their training.
Yeah, assessing that psychological readiness, right? And that's a really important factor, and something I would always be like, hey, probably keep this in mind if you're programming of people. Like if anyone's listening who's just got into the industry, you know what I mean? Just been like, learn your people. If you're absolutely kicking the shit out of someone and they're dragging their ass to the gym, like they're probably not going to be doing that for a long time. Like the sustainability of that, going back to the point that you said earlier, is like really important. Like if they're going to do it once, great. But if they're going to do it every time, then that's a lot better. Especially powerlifting, man. Like it's so technical, and then you're dealing in strength. Like it's such a long time. It takes such a long time.
Yeah. So like training doesn't have to always be sustainable. Like at some point we're going to generate some fatigue. You're not going to want to go to the gym, or you're going to want to go to the gym, but you're going to be nervous about a session and whether or not you can make it through, or you're not going to feel ready for a session you're about to go in. Like that is expected. And especially as athletes get higher and higher level, we expect to be carrying some fatigue on a pretty regular basis. Like I don't remember the last time my legs felt really fresh. And, we joke about that sometimes, but like, it's true, high level athletes, like you have a new normal, but for the most part, I want people to be excited, and go in the gym feeling optimistic and ready to perform.
Yeah, it's funny, right? If you're forced to take some time off, whether you're on holiday or gym shut down because of COVID or whatever the fuck it is, right? And you're like, oh, is this how I'm supposed to feel like all the time?
Right.
Is this my body functioning the way it's supposed to function? You're like, oh,
yeah,
maybe all this like working out is a little bit of a bad idea. Yeah, it's funny, man. It's hilarious. I remember doing that, like just kind of in Eastern Europe, and I was like, oh no, I'm not gonna train. I was like, nah, I'm not gonna train. Like I'm gonna take this time off as just like mental break, physical break. I was like, oh, I feel great. So what is this? Not felt like this in years.
Yeah, exactly.
People that go to the gym, man. I mean, pick your poison, right? You could be on the street shooting up, but we're, in the gym, snorting pre-workout, slapping each other and getting excited when people put heavy weight on their back, sit it down and stand it up. I mean, there's not a lot of difference, but one of them we class as being healthier.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's a dramatically better option. Like we're complaining about very small things here. Like for the most part, it's healthy, it's productive. We're doing good things that aren't just good today, but will set you up well for a lifetime of, reduced bone density loss and, better quality of life, less potential for depression and, other diseases for years and decades to come. So yeah,
it's also the social aspect too, right? Like the people I've met in the gym have 110% been my closest people, like throughout all the time of every gym I've been to. Just you end up bumping in and going shoulder to shoulder with like so many like-minded individuals. Like it's awesome. Like, and I love strength sports in the sense of the barbell has no prejudice. Like it doesn't care who puts their hands on it. It's going to weigh the same, right? So you could be a man or woman, like fully able, disabled, like whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. like it's still going to weigh the same. And I think that as a reminder is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. I enjoy that kind of camaraderie of, like, when someone's going for a PR, it doesn't matter if it's, I don't know, 70 kilos or, 350 kilos or something like that. The same thing is going through their mind of hoping they get it, of, being excited about it, of, having to work and grind through it. Like it's the same set of emotions that people experience across all weights, and feeling excited about doing something they've never done before. That's something everyone can get behind. And I think I remember a few of my first competitions, just feeling people I was competing against cheering for me, and cheering for them in return. And that sense of kind of this shared connection over the barbell is really something special.
Yeah, it really is, man. And like, you get people going for a PR and like people aren't even training that day, but they're coming into the gym just to cheer you on.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on? And it's like, well, you're going heavy on a squat. So I was like, well, I'm here to shout at you. You're like, oh, right. Wow. Yeah, it's cool, man. Like we did an amateur powerlifting, just like if you want to sign up, like all the gear's there, but you don't have to wear anything particular. You can kind of just come in and we'll run it as like this very amateur thing, right? And yeah, it was so super cool just feeling the room of like no one kind of knew each other, no one had a clue who each other were. Like the weights were drastically different. There's some people pushing some pretty considerable tin, and then there was other ones just like it was barely over the barbell, right? And you just feel in this room, stood right at the back, and just feeling the room like this is cool. In a sense of everyone's just getting behind everyone. Like, yeah, you get some questions of like, oh, Alex, like, why are they doing that? Or why are they doing it this way? Or what's going on? I'm like, oh, cool. Like, blah, 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 just chugging along. And like we said, just passing on that knowledge, right? And everyone is there to see you do well and drink coffee and eat Haribos.
Yeah, I'm down for all that.
What's your favorite Haribos, man?
Sour gummies, sour bears.
Ooh, you Americans love the sours, don't you?
Yes, yeah, we absolutely do.
Like,
Sour Patch Kids, they're awesome.
Yeah, Sour Patch Kids,
sour strips, all that stuff.
I have to admit, like you've got such a better selection than back home in the UK. Like we've got like the sour Haribos, and then you've got that, and then you got like toxic waste. So it goes from like, oh yeah, this is nice, to it's gonna blow my goddamn head off.
Yeah,
and I don't want to know what's in those things. Like, just don't.
Well, yeah, the United States takes their fast food very seriously, and it shows in our body mass index as a country. But yeah, we got some good candy.
I mean, hey, this swings and roundabouts. So there's pros and cons.
Right.
Yeah. I heard this question right last week, and I've been racking my brains, and I've been pulling people aside in the gym and asking them, right? And I've been that guy who's just been like, hey, answer me this. Like, go away. You know what I mean? It's like, what's the best life advice you've ever received?
I can imagine being stopped by that question and just being pretty puzzled. Like that's something that you need some time to think about.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm in therapy right now, and like a lot of the things that I'm going through are like, this life advice kind of stuff to just try to improve and be a better person. Just for my own sake, to just kind of improve a little bit.
Sure.
I think a lot of times we don't realize the extent to which the ways that we're living are determined by things that we have no control over, so like seeing things online, seeing how someone else lives, or how you're supposed to look, or how you're supposed to act, or what's supposed to make you happy, or how you're supposed to spend your time. And, like very few of these things stem from you. They're just kind of like norms that are, I don't know, imposed on you. And the more you watch them and the more you spend time around people, the more you may think like these are concrete and these are fixed. And, if you don't find happiness by living this certain way, or by, watching this certain thing, or listening to certain music, like there's something wrong with you. And, I am an atheist. So I think like we have this one shot to live. We have this one shot of consciousness. And at the end of that, there's no more life left. And so you really should spend time doing things that make you happy, specifically, whatever those are. Finding the things that you enjoy doing, and, figuring out how you can spend time doing those things more often, rather than what you think you're supposed to be doing.
That's beautiful, man.
So, yeah.
I agree. I really do agree. And like, if you're not enjoying it, then the fuck are you doing it for? Like, granted, like some things are out of necessity, right? And sometimes you got to do things you don't want to do, and to get to a place that you do want, right? Like sacrifice whatever. Yeah, granted, don't sacrifice it all. But sometimes, yeah, you do have to sacrifice those things to take you from point A to point B, and point B is where you want to be. So that's that's life. But yeah, 100%. Like if you're not enjoying it, you're not happy, then what are you doing? Like that's a lot of people I went to school with, right? Like I'm over here in New Zealand, right? So I left. I didn't go to uni, or I went for 2 months, literally, and then I was broke, couldn't afford it. Like I was like, well, I'm fucked. I need to leave. But everyone's done the same thing, and everyone's in the same place, and everyone's just got a 9 to 5 or whatever, and I don't get it. I'm like, is that what you want to do? It's like, no, it gives me a paycheck. It's like, well, it's not what you want to do.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways of viewing job and work and stuff like that. I'm sure you've heard this, like, oh, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. You know what I mean? And like, I don't really believe that too, because I think even if you're doing what you like it's not just like pure bliss all the time. And we habituate to what we do like pretty quickly. So it'll be novel for a while, and then it'll kind of be work after a while like that. But okay, so going back to kind of these two ways of viewing life. So one is you work probably in something you don't like tremendously, but you try to make money so that you are able to do what you really want to in your free time. And then the other way is do something that you love doing. So that's what you love doing. And it's not really so bad. So you just get to enjoy doing that all the time. And then you still get to do some stuff in your spare time too, but it's a lot of work anyways. So I don't think there's a right way. Like most people are probably in the former category, who do something they're not crazy passionate about, but it gives them money, so they get to do what they want to in other places. Like how many HR people are like absolutely passionate about being in human resources, or like finance, like, oh, I love finance, or I love accounting. It's my passion. Taxes. Oh, I love it. Probably not a whole lot of people, maybe some for sure. But yeah, they're just trying to have a stable income so they can do what they love in other times. And like, I get that. It's just, I don't know. I kind of ended up here as a powerlifting coach.
Yeah, for sure. Like I understand it. And if that's the way they want to live their life, then who are we to judge, right? And it's just like, like the way you want to live, like 100%. Personally, it's not for me. Like I would much rather stick by my own moral compass and make a lot less dollars than the opposite. But like we said, who am I to judge and who they to judge? Do whatever the fuck you want to do at the end of the day. And then the second question, like the follow on for that is like, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Good question. I don't know. Like, I think sometimes when people say like, oh, like just be happy, like you can just kind of switch it on and off, or something like that. It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just a simplified, just kind of like casual expression like that. Um, Happiness is complex. Like it's really complex. There's a few other great podcasts on it. There's one actually called the Happiness Lab, by Dr. Laurie Santos. She's a researcher out of Penn State, maybe. Anyway, some awesome stuff on positive psychology coming out of that, but you can't like force yourself to be happy or something. And oftentimes the things that we think will make us happy actually don't. So digging into that just a little bit is a really good idea.
I think that's really important too, right? And like I'm a thinker, right? I'll sit down and I'll think a lot of things, and I'll write some things down, and books and all that bullshit. But at the same time, I think of it as like we're all human, right? I would like to think so. Some of us may appear alien-like, but we are all human. So that means we're supposed to feel all emotions. Like life is a gray area. We know that there is no definitive answer for anything. Everything's just a theory, and one snap of the fingers, and what we once thought is true is now false. So everything's just a gray area. So like, so's emotion. And if happiness is one emotion on one side of the spectrum, and the other side is, complete depression, and we've got all those other emotions in the middle. If life is a gray area, then we're supposed to feel them all. We're supposed to pendulum from one side to the other. We're supposed to sit in the middle for a while. We're supposed to be stuck at one end for a while. And like, it's weird to think about, but at the same time, it's freeing in the sense of, if you're super happy, you're like, okay, yeah, great, I'm happy, but I'm going to appreciate this time now, because life is going to throw something at me somewhere down the line, and it's going to throw me to the other end of the pendulum, and then I'm going to be like super down in the dumps. And then also, if you're on that end, you're like, well, feelings fade, and this ain't going to stick around for the rest of my life. Like, things fall to pieces. You put something, say for example, I don't know, like the autumn leaves, the fall leaves, they're there for 2 weeks, but then they fall off. And it's gone. And then, life begins again, and it's the cycle of life. And like, I think nature is a great metaphor for everything going on in your head, because us human beings are not the smartest of animals. We try and come up with all the answers, and we don't. And we come up with, like, let's be honest, we scratch the surface. And you go out and just watch, right? And I remember going on some walk by a big mountain here in Christchurch, right? Anyway, it kind of wound down, and I ended up getting to this waterfall. I'm like, fuck, it's a bit dark down here. It's like super gloomy, but it's just like this waterfall. And I just sat there watching it, and I was like, this is poetic. This is beautiful. There's a super dark little cave, and it looked like it was never going to get any sunlight. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's wet, it's damp, and like, it's dark. I'm like, nothing is going to live there. And then you just see like these little plants just sort of chilling. And you're like, hold on a minute. Even at like the most hostile of environments, Mother Nature chooses life. You're like, maybe we should do the same. You're just like, there we go. Stood back up, walked back into civilization. Oh, thank you, man. Like,
yeah.
I think a lot of people lack that way of thinking these days, man, or even lack the confidence to go seek out therapy. You know what I mean?
I think, one thing that happens is just like there are fewer quiet moments where people aren't doing anything. Like I don't want this to turn into like just hating on social media, but social media has filled in a lot of those moments that used to just be these quiet contemplative moments, just like waiting in a grocery store line, or being on a bus or something like that. You can just fill that time with stuff, whether it's social media or looking at pictures, or texting your friends or something, rather than just kind of being alone with your thoughts. And I don't want that to totally go away. These moments like you had where you just started thinking about life, and you were on this hike, and in a beautiful place, and just fully in the moment, in that space. Like, I don't want those moments to just go away completely. And I worry that those quiet moments are starting to fade away a little bit more.
Yeah, especially for a lot of people, right? It's always screen time. I think it comes down to the individual to be real strict. I've been like, I'm not going to go on my phone for whatever time, or I'm going to even delete the app. You know what I mean? Like, all your information's still going to be there. Let's be honest. It's just not going to be on the screen. So you're not going to have the temptation. And I usually do it every year. I'll like disappear and I'll delete everything from my phone. Like, I can basically dial like 111, which is 911. And that's about it. Like, I keep it on airplane mode so people can't contact me, and I literally like just fucking go rogue. And it's weird, man. You go to some weird places in your head, weird places, but you come out the other end and you're like, holy shit, I can see life through another set of eyes. Before the world, before people or situations or whatever starts clouding your judgment. It's like, no, you got that time for you to communicate with yourself, for you to communicate with the nature around you, and for you to set your own self. So then you can then, like we do, right? We help people for a living. Like, it's super grateful for that. And it's incredible. But at the same time, we need to, help ourselves. And that comes with everything else needs to go away for a while.
Yeah, it's really true. You find that it hurts your business at all when you take time away from social media?
Honestly, man, I thought it would. It would negatively impact me a lot more than it does. Yeah, you get a little bit of a slump, but that's life. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way it's going to be. Like, if you take any type of holiday, you're going to get some sort of slump. But I just got to a stage where I was like, you know what? I just don't care. I was like, I fucking work so hard anyway that being the underdog like fires me up. So if it dips, that's just going to give me more motivation anyway. And I'm like, I need to do this, otherwise I'll burn every bridge possible. So I'll be like, cool. And I just got to the stage where I just didn't care, to be honest. And like I said, like, I write too, so that technically is an investment into something else. So if I go away and I start writing some things, and it's just me and a notepad, I know in like 6 to 12 months time, that's going to be a book. So it's kind of like an investment for future things. So that's the way I trick my own mind to not be so paranoid about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Brother, I really, really appreciate your time and honesty.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. Anytime.
Really appreciate it. If people wanted to find you, where would you send them?
Well, speaking of social media, I post a lot of random philosophical musings, studies, tips about how to be a better athlete on Instagram at Bryce_TSA. And you can learn more about how we work with athletes at our website at thestrengthathlete.com.
Perfect. I love all the philosophical stuff, man. That's exactly how my brain works, of just like questioning everything. So I really appreciate that, even if no one else does.
Cool, man. Well, I'll keep it up. I appreciate the encouragement.
And if you ever find yourself dicking around in the bottom right-hand corner of the world, not knowing what to do, then hit me up. We'll grab a coffee and we'll get under a barbell.
That sounds great. In the meantime, I'm thankful for the internet for connecting us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, bro. Have a great day, man.
All right. Thanks. You too.
Take it easy.